these aren't people that should have been in charge of Manchester United transfers, yet somehow they were. Plus, you've got that other moron, Joel Glazer, sticking his nose in every now and again, saying, "Oh, don't sell him, I like him," or, he reminds me of Pele, or whatever nonsense he was saying about certain players. I mean, it's doomed to failure.
Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. My name is Joe and that is Jay. And today we're going to be talking about PSR, Manchester United, and how we've been so bad at selling players and how we can fix it. Who we can sell to actually make some money so that we can make some moves in the transfer window. United, over the last 10 years, Jay, have been an utter disaster at selling players, to put it lightly. Yeah? Can I just start off with some stats here? In the last 10, basically, since Sir Alex Ferguson left Manchester United, 11 years, we haven't had any proper transfer windows in the 12th year yet. So 11 years since that happened, Chelsea have brought in £1.42 billion in transfer income. Yeah?
Right.
Man United have brought in £480 million. So basically, $1 billion less than Chelsea. Now, Chelsea are almost an outlier because of the way they do their dealings in the last few years, especially since Todd Boehly got there. So let's compare us to City, Liverpool and Tottenham instead. City have made £805 million in income, Liverpool have made £775 million, and Tottenham have made £703 million. And just to remind you, United have made £483 million. It's way different, isn't it? Why do you think we've been so bad at bringing money in for our players when you look at the average position, especially compared to Tottenham, we're not any worse than they are. We've probably been better than them for most of those 10 years.
I think a lot of it is you look at the players we're buying and what we're aiming to do. And we buy players who we feel are ready, or we have done over the last 10 years, maybe not more so recently, but players that we think are ready to help us win a title. So when we spend 80 million on Romelu Lukaku, when we spend 89 million on Paul Pogba, when we spend 80 million on Harry Maguire, when we spend 67 million on Angel Di Maria, these aren't future investments. These are players we think, we'll get them now because these players are going to come into this team and push us towards a title challenge or winning a title. Obviously, we haven't done that. But then in a few years' time, with Lukaku, with Pogba, I mean, Pogba, don't get me started, the whole transfer thing there where we let him go for free, buy him back for 89 million, let him go free again was ridiculous. With players like Lukaku, even Di Maria, it's like when you buy a car, as soon as you drive it off the forecourt, it loses its value. Yeah. When you buy a 26, 27-year-old for huge amounts of money, or a 25-year-old for huge amounts of money, as soon as you bought him, he loses a little bit of his value. Yeah. And then if they have one or two bad seasons or underwhelming seasons at United, and then you sell them, you ain't going to get your money back. So we're operating in a different kind of sphere than some of these teams. That being said, we've still been shockingly bad in the transfer market. Yeah. I'm not excusing it. I'm just trying to explain it somewhat. We've made so many bad signings. We've bought so many players where, you look at Di Maria, for example, we bought him, one summer and sold him the summer after at a loss, after he'd done for us. That's not good business. Lukaku, we didn't win anything with him. I think we got to the final, the FA Cup. I think we finished second, didn't we? Didn't really do what he was meant to do. Yeah. We sold him at a loss. I mean, there's very few signings we've made post Alex Ferguson until hopefully recently, although it's early days, that have really worked out. There's only a handful where you go, that was a good signing, and that's amazing.
It says how bad our selling in particular has been, that two of the disasters you mentioned there, Lukaku wasn't quite a disaster for me, it didn't work. Di Maria was a disaster. Yeah. He comes, he fails, he leaves within a year. The money we got for those two players makes up around a quarter of the overall sales we've made in the last 10 years. So even those failures, I think we've got 65 million for Lukaku and about 50 or 45 million for Di Maria. So that's about 110 million of the 186 that we've brought in. So it's almost like the other ones. The Pogba one is a disaster. Yeah. You spend 90 million quid on him and we've made £0 on Paul Pogba leaving Manchester United twice. There's other ones that are like those two. They're bad because you spend big. You want them to take you to a title, and it didn't happen. So they feel more painful. But from a financial and just business sense perspective, there's a few players that I think are even sillier than the likes of Di Maria and Lukaku. So for the first one is Jesse Lingard. Fallen out of favour with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, wasn't getting picked, goes on loan to West Ham. I think he gets something like 10 goals, 6 assists in the final 6 months of the year from January. He's one of the most informed players in the Premier League at that point. Comes back after his loan ends. West Ham offers somewhere in the region of 20 to 25 million. We say no, we don't want that. He never makes his way back into the first team after that. Yeah. Barely plays again for United and leaves for a free, I think either a summer or two later. Yeah. When you think, that was 25 million quid. And you think, well, that's not that much. That would be like our 6th best ever sale. I think Dan James currently is our 6th best ever sale in terms of the amount we've made for him. Like, it's just utter stupidity. Like, the amount that we hold on and we wait for these players, and it never comes good. It never works out. Even the likes of David Beckham, 20 years ago, basically when he left now, I think it is 20 years ago or just over, we got 25 million for him. He was 2 years into a 5-year deal, and transfer business is completely changed since then, but it was still not a lot for a world superstar going to the biggest club in the world in Real Madrid. That
was ludicrous. I thought so at the time. Yeah. I was gutted when he left. I thought it was insane that he left for what I felt was a relatively cheap price, because almost every metric you look at with David Beckham is an exceptional footballer. He can, he's a match winner. His work rate is phenomenal. And also from a marketing perspective, he's probably the biggest name or one of the biggest names in world football. Yeah. I think Real Madrid made their money back in shirt sales after about a week. Yeah. So it just didn't make any sense. I think the reason that was relatively low was Fergie wanted him out. Yeah. Fergie had enough, just get rid of him. So even though I didn't like it, I understand why it was relatively low, if you can call 20-odd million quid relatively low for a player of the calibre of David Beckham, who'd won the lot, was still youngish, and had the marketing value of probably fewer players in the history of association football have ever had the marketing value that David Beckham had at that time.
Yeah, and we'll get into the current squad and where we can potentially be a little bit more ruthless and find a bit of income from selling players. Which it's sad and it's slightly cynical, but it is football, isn't it? You have to sell players. But just a couple of players. Before we get to that, even the likes of Eric Bailly, Anthony Martial, Ander Herrera, all players who left for free. Who I know. What happened with Paul Pogba is like inexplicable the last sort of 18 months or 2 years of his life. So it's turned out that, Juve wouldn't have wanted to spend 40 million on the player they ended up getting with the drugs ban and all the stuff off the pitch. But he's a player that's been worth money every year of his career. He's valuable when he's fit to most teams in the world. And we've let him leave twice for free. Ander Herrera comes in, signs a 5-year deal, plays those 5 years, never gets a new deal, and just leaves for free and goes to PSG. Even, Eric Bailly and players like that who maybe it would have been difficult to get rid of him. But we knew probably 2-3 years before he left that it wasn't going to work. And yet he's just there on the bench. Like Victor Lindelof, it's happening with him now. When did we know that he probably wasn't good enough? 2022?
Yeah, I think Victor Lindelof's... It's been sad to say. I used to really rate Victor Lindelof. And the last 18 months, maybe 2 years, he's been woeful. And it's not all his fault, just what I had, because he has been played out of position, but he's not been anywhere near the levels you need from a Manchester United player.
No, and by contrast, look at the way Man City get rid of players. Gabriel Jesus, not really good enough to take you to the levels and the heights that someone like a Haaland could. Sold him for 50 million quid, just under 50 million quid. Raheem Sterling has gone on to do nothing since he left Man City. Right. Got 50 million quid for him. Zinchenko was starting for Arsenal, but even pretty quickly they realised he wasn't good enough for them. 35 million quid for him. That's 130 million quid there for players that City realised weren't good enough and have proven at their subsequent clubs not to be good enough. United, by contrast, we know that people aren't good enough and we let them leave 2 years later or 3 years later for free. It's just bad planning with the people we buy in. And then when they get here, that same bad planning by the same people extends to how we treat them at Manchester United. And we go, we don't really know what to do with you. We can't get any money because we've given you too big a contract. Guess you'll have to go for free. Paul Pogba, if we'd have sold him 2 years before we let him leave for free, you're talking 30 to 60 million quid, depending on who's in for him and how desperate they are. Instead, it's £0 to spend on other players later on.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think that's one of the most ridiculous transfers in history. Yeah. Not because I don't rate Paul Pogba, I do. I rated him when he was in the academy. But to let him go for free, not be able to work it out where you keep him was bad. To let him go for free and then buy him back for 89 million quid was a bit ridiculous, although you can kind of forgive it because you go, okay, he's gone at Juve, he smashed it, we want him back, whatever. But then to let him go for free again to the same club that you've been doing all these deals with is just insanity. Even look at someone like Anthony Martial. I think was he a Golden Boy winner? Yeah. He's like one of the most sought after youngsters on the planet. How on earth did Anthony Martial end up leaving Manchester United at 27, 28 for nothing? Yeah. Like, We just don't. We've had no plan with these players.
Having been barely played for the last 2.5 years.
Exactly.
Of his career,
It's like everything about these transfers makes zero sense from a Manchester United point of view. You need someone who's be a little bit more business savvy, and perhaps someone overseeing the transfers who knows what they're doing. Because in the past we've had Ed Woodward, who just didn't have a clue, like shining new toys, signing players and not thinking about the long term plan or what if the manager didn't work out whether he's going to be able to play than the next manager or who the next manager was going to be. There was none of that. It was all reactionary, all nonsensical. Then you get, I think was it John Murtagh who's involved, equally as inept. Richard Arnold, zero football sort of pedigree, didn't know what he was doing, just almost made Ed Woodward look competent almost. Like, these aren't people that should have been in charge of Manchester United transfers, yet somehow they were. Plus, you've got that other moron, Joel Glazer, sticking his nose in every now and again, saying, oh, don't sell him, I like him, or, he reminds me of Pele, or whatever nonsense he was saying about certain players. I mean, it's doomed to failure. Yeah. Like, it really is. You need someone, which hopefully is what Ineos have got now, with someone like Barada, who's got a bit of a football background. I know he's a CEO rather than just on transfers. Jason Wilcox, and a head coach who can work with some of these players. I'm hoping this is going to be a sort of a new era, because the last 10, 11 years have just been insane. And some of them, I don't mind as much. Like, if you got some out of it. Like, if you get Ander Herrera, and it is annoying that he went for free, but it's like, we signed him for not an extortionate amount. Yeah. He played his 5 years. He did a pretty good job, I feel, for those 5 years. Then he goes. It is annoying we didn't get anything for him. Maybe we should have sold him a little bit earlier than what he left, or maybe we could have got a contract deal that he'd have signed. But it's not the end of the world. But others have made zero sense. Look at the Alexis Sanchez one that we've not even spoken about. Mkhitaryan, we bring him in. He's meant to be the player that we want, and the player that's going to work in this system and that can, help us win trophies, helps us win the Europa and the League Cups, to be fair to the kid. You swap him for Alexis Sanchez, who's done. He's done by the time he gets to United, let alone, before he got to United, he was like, there was rumours when he was unhappy at Arsenal, and that's why he's not performing. No, he was just done. He was a spent force. His wages are astronomical. He don't want to be here. He pushes Martial out of the team. It's just a disastrous transfer. And in the end, not only is wages astronomical, you end up loaning him to Inter Milan and paying some of his wages to play for another team. And you think, okay, you've made a mistake there. Let's not do it again. And then 3 years later, you're doing exactly the same thing with Jadon Sancho, where he ends up playing for another team while you pay part of his wages. It's just moronic.
Yeah, the Sancho one is another one, like I said, we haven't even mentioned. There is almost too many to mention. I'm going to have to stop you there, Jay, because this show is brought to you by Manscaped. And you know the thing with Manscaped by now, Jay, it's not just downstairs anymore. They cover everything with the beard and balls bundle, because you've got the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra for the downstairs, the crown jewels. If you want to trim things down, you want to make sure you look after yourself, that's where that comes in. Yeah. And you've got the beard hedger for everything else. That takes care of everything you've got to play with. And using the code Paddock24, you get 20% off and free shipping at checkout. The link is in the description. Go and check them out. Why do you love Manscaped, Jay?
Because, like I said, they've got you covered, and it's also these revolutionary new devices they come out with, these step forwards or these leaps forward when it comes to technology. You think to yourself, the Lawnmower 4.0, we've reached the pinnacle, we've reached the zenith, and they go, no, we haven't. The 5.0 Ultra comes out, and it's got everything that you could wish for when it comes to below the waist grooming. It's got those skin-safe blades. It's got the latest technology. It's got the multifunctional on-off switch, which you love that, don't we? Do you know what I mean? It's like, turn it off and on. Oh, brilliant. And then you get the beard hedger. 20 length options. Titanium coated steel blades. Are you kidding me?
You can't ask for more than that, really. And also, if you go on the website and look at everything they have to offer, they've got the liquid formulations as well. Do you know what I mean? It's not just the trimmers. They've got everything. If you want to smell nice, look nice, keep moisturised, everything. Like, it just, they literally, if you think, oh, how do I look after my balls? Is that what you're meant to be doing these days? Go to manscaped.com, they'll sort you out. They just know what to do.
Wasn't your Motown tribute band called Joe Smith and the Liquid Formations?
It was. Yeah, a lot of those guys are still working as session musicians. Yeah, they really are. Stink Floyd, one of them works for.
Oh, fantastic. What a guy. Thank you. Go and check out the link in the description. Yes, we know it's 2025, so we'll get a new code. Stop worrying. But we do have the code Paddock24. So just remember the year that we won the FA Cup by beating Manchester City.
Exactly. Yes. And if you want to take care of the dark side of your moon, use Manscaped with the code Paddock24 at checkout. But I do want to talk about United's current squad and going through some players in there, and because we have to be a little bit more ruthless if we're not going to repeat these mistakes. One big part of it is don't give players such big contracts in the first place, because then it makes them easier to sell. That seems to be something that we've kind of learned a little bit. I think players coming in tend to get smaller wages than they would have done 3 or 4 years ago. Some of the reports around like Ugarte's wages and I think Mazraoui's wages as well are much more modest than the likes of Antony's and Casemiro's, and they're smaller players, but maybe that's part of the reasoning behind it. But going through some players, are there players here that you think maybe now's the time to cash in? I know this is obviously a hard thing to go through, and you're not saying you hate these players or you want them to leave necessarily, but sometimes you have to make difficult decisions. Onana, do you put him in that category, or do you think that we keep him?
I think you can assess that at the end of the season. I don't think he's going anywhere in January.
No.
Me and you have spoken about this. I'm not changing my tune. We said it in the summer. He needs a good season. He needs a big season. He was having one, and then we gave him the kiss of death by saying how good he was, and then he had a month to forget. Yeah. He's had some slightly better performances since then, but I still feel like you can assess that at the end in the summer.
If he ends the season strongly now, then I think he's had a decent season.
I agree.
It wasn't a massive trunk of bad games. It was a 4 or 5 game blip, wasn't it?
And I think if I had to say, I think he will end up staying. Yeah. But I think you there's a case to be made that you can assess it, can't you? Because let's not forget as well, Ruben Amorim didn't bring him in. No. He was very much a Ten Hag signing because he knew him from Ajax and he wanted him to replace David De Gea.
On that same note then, Lisandro Martinez, not going to be everyone's cup of tea just in terms of his physicality and his height. Is something that most centre-backs don't have a 5'9". Most teams don't have a 5'9" centre-back. Is he someone you think they might want to cash in on? I
doubt it. Yeah. I don't think his value would make it worth it in terms of what you'll get for him. I think his value would be better to the team because he's had a long spell out of injury. He's had a couple of patchy spells just with his form. I think most clubs who are looking at him might go, okay, he's worth 30, 40 million at best. Is it worth it to Manchester United to sell him? Probably not. I think he's a very good player, and I think he will and can do a job for Manchester United, and does do a job most weeks for Manchester United.
Yeah, I mean Lindelof, I think he's going to leave. That goes without saying. Johnny Evans, it almost isn't worth talking about. He's a different case to everyone else. We're not going to get any money from anywhere.
And more. I'd like to see him stay on actually as a coach if that's feasible.
Luke Shaw's still got 2 years left on his contract. He's someone that probably should go at the end of the season.
He should. He's going to have to get fit though, because he was going to sign him, even though he's a very good player. If he's injured, no one's going to want him. No. So, if you can move him on, I would. Because he's useless to Manchester United. I don't mean he's a useless footballer. He's a good footballer. I mean, if he's constantly injured, what good is it to United? Me and you are as good to United at the minute as Luke Shaw because he can't play. So
that means a lot.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? And I'm not trying to hate on Luke Shaw. It's not his fault he's injured. I don't quite share the anger that some have about him going away with England. I understand that he wanted to play in a tournament or whatever, but he's never fit. He's missed, I think, 60% of the last 5 years or 4 years of games for Manchester United. That is untenable. You cannot have a player in your squad who plays as few games as Luke Shaw.
I agree with you. Terrell Malacia, another one on that side, got back from injury. It wouldn't be a blockbuster transfer, but there might be 5, 10, 15 million that someone wants to pay for him. Would you take it?
Maybe if you can get your money back, it could be worth it. I mean, again, you might assess it at the end of the season. Does he do anything for Ruben Amorim between now and the end of the season? I do worry about Tyrone Malacia. I do worry that and I hope he proves me wrong, but I do worry he didn't have enough to lose a little bit. Do you know what I mean? He wasn't the best left back in the league, and he's come back and he's lost 3 or 4%, but he's still amazing. I think he was a player that was just about good enough to do a job, and if he's lost a little bit, is that just sort of to get him to the level where you go, he's not quite good enough for United anymore? I hope I'm wrong, but I feel that.
Here's another one that is a bit more controversial potentially, and you actually could get maybe in that sort of 35 to 55 million quid for Diogo Dalot. There seemed to be interest in whether it's just to put pressure on Liverpool to sell him Alexander-Arnold. Seemed to be some interest from Real Madrid. Talks of around 40 to 50 million quid for him. Would you take that?
I like Dalot. It sounds like an oxymoron. But if there was 40 to 50 million quid, I think you could get a wing back that suits the system better. Yeah, and that would be an improvement. I thought Diogo Dalot did very well in Erik ten Hag's last full season. Yeah. But he's still got one in him. And this season he's been very, very up and down. He's been more down than up. great game at Anfield, great to see, and he reminded everyone what he's capable of. But then a week later, he does the most stupid thing you can do on a yellow card at the Emirates. Yeah. And I know Steve thought it wasn't a second yellow. I disagree.
You dive in, you're asking for it.
You're asking even,
the way it was.
Yeah, even there, it was like Fred against PSG when he went to ground, and you think, we didn't really catch him, but you know what's coming. I know obviously Delos was a bit more obvious. So yeah, I'd be tempted by that. That feels like you can do something with that money. Yeah. If it was like 20 million, you'd probably go, well, we're not going to get someone as good as him for 20 million, so why bother? Well, if it's 40 or 50 million, you think, actually, and if you shop around...
Yeah, he's a bit of a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah, he is, isn't he? He is. So yeah. I think that makes... Because at some point, you have to make decisions about players that are in and around the first team and are playing. You can't just go, let's sell Victor Lindelof.
Let's sell all the people who never get a game
and Cyril Malacia and let Johnny Evans go, and now we've got loads of money to buy, do you know what I mean, Victor Gyökeres. That won't work. You have to have one or two first-team players who go, and he could be one of them.
Well, like we said before, Sterling, Jesus and Zinchenko were all regular starters for Man City. Sterling in particular played almost every game for most of his time there, and yet that's, like we said, 150 million quid that they wouldn't have had if they hadn't have sold those first-team players. Let's move on to Casemiro again. It's an easy one. It's a bit of a no-brainer.
Get him off the wage bill. Yeah. If you get any money for him, like decent money, great. If you don't get much, if you get like even 15 mil or something, very low. Yeah. Just the wages itself, the money you're saving there makes it worthwhile. Because I think we're in a position now where Toby Collier's getting picked ahead of him. Yeah. No disrespect to Toby Collier, I like the kid, but he's 21 years old. He's played what? He played, I think, 2 games for United before the game at the Emirates?
3, I think.
3, sorry.
Even so, yeah.
And he brings him on for that game rather than trusting Casemiro. We saw it against Newcastle, Casemiro and Eriksen for that matter. Yeah. Both looked just lost.
Well, let's do Eriksen next then. His contract runs out at the end of the season. You looking to renew or let him go?
No, absolutely not. And I like Eriksen. I think he's a good professional, and I think he has something to his game that almost none of our other midfielders have. But I just think he's done at this level. Yeah. Certainly for United. Anyway, he might go to another Premier League club and still have something to offer. But if United have got aspirations of challenging at the top of the table, he's not that guy anymore.
There's a lot of interesting ones to go through here. I mean, the next one, it's a bit more straightforward again. Marcus Rashford. Whether you like him or not, it looks like he's gone, doesn't it? How much do you think we can get for him?
A lot may depend on what he does on loan.
Yeah.
Because if he does a Martial where he goes on loan and does nought, his value will decrease, and people go, actually, he could be on his way, he could be done. Because that's kind of what happened. Martial went to Sevilla, and I remember me and Mac talking about it on air, and he was saying, he could increase his value, and it went the other way round. He went there, scored I think 1 goal, and after the first game, Lopetegui, who was the manager, was slagging him off. You think this is a disaster. But if we can, if Marcus can go, say he goes Milan, for example, I don't know if he will, but somewhere, scores, 15 goals or 10 goals or whatever, and looks like rejuvenated, maybe you get 50 million for him. Yeah. I think you're probably going to get closer to 40 mil. Yeah. And I think because his wages again, and it's all profit because he's an academy player, you probably say that.
Yeah. Another player that's a big name, lots spoken about him, Bruno Fernandes. Some people think he doesn't fit in the system. People don't like his sort of attitude, his persona, his perceived mardiness. He's got a deal that expires in a couple of years, so no rush to sell him. But would you put him on that list?
You cannot sell Bruno Fernandes.
No,
he's the one signing we've got right, unequivocally, post Sir Alex Ferguson, is Bruno, and you want to sell him? No, it's just you're not going to replace Bruno Fernandes easily. You're just not, and he's a player that offers you so much, not just in terms of his class on the ball, his ability to get goals and assists, also his work rate, he has leadership values. He's ever present. He's never injured. He does have leadership qualities that people just want to ignore. We saw it at the Emirates when he was taking instructions from Ruben Amorim, dropping into defence with Martinez was pushing up because he had a bit of a knock. I'd be devastated if United sort of say 40 million for Bruno Fernandes. I just think that's idiotic.
Yeah, me too. Definitely keep. And like you said, we only paid 47 million for him. Yeah. It wasn't like he's in 80 million. Even if we had paid 80, I think he'd have been worth it. Yeah. But I think the fact that we did pay 47, which is like, we spent that on Fred. He costs less than Fred.
Yeah.
Come on. Kobbie Mainoo.
This knocked me sick. Me and you've spoken about this on other videos. Mainoo's a player that comes around. I know you don't like the term generational, but for me, it feels like that. I don't know many, like the best central midfielders we've ever had in my lifetime, like who've come through the academy, the likes of Paul Scholes, the likes of Nicky Butt, players like that. I'm not saying he's better than them or anything like that, but he's coming. They weren't playing first team regular football for United at 18. Admittedly, they had better players in front of him, but he's come into the team at 18 and shone to the point where he ends up getting in the England side, gate crashing that party and starting in the Euros final.
Yeah.
You can build a team, not saying just around him, but he can be one of those players that you build a team around amongst others. I don't think you're going to sell him and bring in better players. I think as well it sends a completely wrong message to everyone if United are letting go a player like Kobbie Mainoo. So I would keep him. I just feel like he's one of those players. I know reports from Ornstein and Chris Wheeler and others are saying that United would, if the right offer came in for him, listen to it. I don't think they should.
No, completely agree. Mason Mount, second year now, struggled to just with injuries completely the whole time. Still got 3 years left on his deal, obviously, because we only brought him in 2 years ago. Would you get rid?
I would. This feels very much like Ross Barkley at Chelsea, or just a player that is a good player, but the move's wrong and his injuries are just non-stop. And it just feels like if he went somewhere else, I know injuries are injuries, but it just feels like that might get him going again. Yeah. It might be a change of the number 7 shirt and the expectation and the £60 million price tag at United doesn't help. He's had a lot of grief for things that are just not that deep. Like the social media post after was it the Spurs game or the Liverpool guy was getting mixed up with his cut on his head. Don't worry, my head's all right. And it felt much David Brent. You're still thinking about the bad news.
Yeah. And then he also was out for a month after that.
Yeah, it's just not working out. Everything seems to be going against him, and I feel like he needs a move. Like this is a transfer.
You might still get 35 million.
Yeah, this is a transfer that is edging towards a disastrous one.
Yeah,
because he's done pretty much nothing.
No,
like in a United shirt
in a season and a half.
Yeah.
So it's not the biggest sample size, but he can't stay fit. What do you do? What can anyone do?
If you're thinking about what has Mason Mount done for United.
Yeah,
was it the goal against, was it Brentford?
Yeah, that we then conceded 2 minutes later. Not his fault, but it's not a, oh wow, he won us the game.
Yeah, good 45 minutes against Brighton, but then he gets injured at half-time, or not half-time, but just before half-time. Like, there's moments and bits, but nothing where you go, I tell you what, Mason Mount for the last 3 or 4 games has been mint. He's not even played 3 or 4 games on the spin. For me, you got to move him on.
Diallo?
No. I feel like Diallo is a fantastic. I love Amad Diallo. I do. But I think you need to add to players like Diallo. We need more players like that, not getting rid of him.
No.
Diallo should have someone challenging him more. It shouldn't be all on him to start every game of United. I know he doesn't he gets rotated a little bit because he didn't start the Emirates, but it's like a
knock though, wasn't it?
Yeah, sorry, it was a knock. Thank you. I keep forgetting that. Well reminded. Like it's all on him. It shouldn't be.
No.
Amad Diallo should be one of 3 or 4 attackers who's in the mix.
Yeah.
Like, he should be that. Not, he's our main attacker, who if you man-mark him, in fact, put 2 men on him. Don't worry about anyone else. Which is what Wolves did.
Yeah,
exactly.
And we couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And Diallo's a very good player, and he's a better player than I thought he was.
Yeah.
But he shouldn't be our best attacker.
No.
He's not that good.
No. He might get there, but at the minute...
Yeah, but as of right now... I love
the kid, I do.
Look at some of the forward lines we've had. I don't even need to list the names. The forward lines Man United have had. Amad Diallo wouldn't be in the top 2 or 3 best players that we've had during our best periods in an attacking sense. So we need to get back to the point where he's improving as he gets older. He becomes maybe a 10-goal, 15-assist kind of guy. Incredible. But he's not there yet. And the fact that he's by far our best attacker is a really strong indictment on the rest of the lineup for me.
It is. You're right. I agree with everything you said. And I think what you do is you keep him and add more quality to that forward line. And then he's someone who hopefully can kick on and get you, like you said, those sort of numbers, those 15, 20 goals, whatever, or 25 goal involvements in a season. But I think if you sell him, you're all starting from square one again. It's like, well, we haven't really got anyone who's shining at the minute.
We've got to keep him, definitely. Anthony, I think the opposite is true.
I don't want to keep going on and on about it, so let's just say it's been a terrible signing. It hasn't worked out. It's not his fault for the price we paid. Even the new manager doesn't seem to rate him. Move him on.
Yeah. Rasmus Højlund?
I wouldn't sell Rasmus Højlund. I think that there is a player there. But I do worry a little bit about Rasmus Højlund. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah.
I do worry about whether he's going to be able to hit the heights that we hope he can. And that's not all down to him, but some of it is.
Yeah.
We keep saying, he's not getting any serve, he's not getting any chances. Well, that is true, but also it is true that at times he hasn't looked quite good enough.
Yeah.
So we just need to see a little bit more from him. And I feel like he could be a player for Manchester United, but I feel like Rasmus Højlund's future at Manchester United might not even be a first choice player. It might be someone who's sort of in and out, back up or whatever. don't really see him leading the line for us in the future, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope he proves me wrong.
Also, he's still got 3 years left on his deal.
He's young as well.
So we don't need to make a rash decision now, get rid of him.
What did we spend on him? 70-odd million?
No, it was 64 that could go up to 72, which presumably hasn't. So 64 million.
Do you think that value's increased?
No, definitely not.
So
you're probably looking at about 45 to 50 now.
Is it worth it? Is it worth taking the loss? What, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Unless it was like, well, if we sell him, we get Gyökeres, and the manager went, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But I'd probably keep.
Joshua Zirkzee then up next. He's been here for 6 months. He's had a handful of impressive performances, a handful of not so impressive performances. What do you make of him? Would you cut your losses and get 30 million for him to go back to Serie A, or are you still holding out hope?
I wouldn't sell him in January, and I feel like it's a little bit like I said with Onana. You assess it, see where you're up to. If I had to make a decision now, if it was like I've got to say one way or the other, I think he's probably going to end up moving on.
Yeah,
I think that probably makes sense, but it's not set in stone, and we've seen a few glimpses there where you go, there's a player there.
Yeah.
It's just, is he the right player for Manchester United? Can he fit in this system? Can he do what we need him to do? Because he feels like he's more one of the 10s than the 9. Yeah. And if you've got Diallo,
he's not really a 10.
No, he's not. He calls himself a 9.5. I think he said.
But he doesn't think. When you think of Bruno's passing range in that position, Zirkzee doesn't have that.
And you think of Diallo's energy. Yeah. I know Xerxes shown it, and Emirates running the full length of the pitch to make the sliding tackle. I just, I'm not.
Worry me a bit,
and I don't
like him, and I feel sorry for him a bit.
I don't want. That's the issue there, John. I'm not having to dig at you for saying it, but it's almost got to this make-a-wish thing. Like everyone feels sorry for him because he got booed. Oh, let's keep him. No, that's not how it works.
No.
Like, if he's not good enough, and I'm not saying you might think he is, but if he's not good enough, just because he got booed doesn't mean you keep him.
No.
Like, the booing was wrong.
Don't boo him, but also maybe he isn't good enough.
Yeah.
Still don't be a
don't boo him. Yeah, I don't agree with booing him at all, but that doesn't mean that we have to keep him now because he got booed by his own fans, because that's just nonsense.
Yeah.
So, I probably think he's going to go.
Yeah, me too. And finally then, Alejandro Garnacho. Difficult one, this, because he was sort of, 12 months ago, looked at as the face of the future of Man United. Mainly was just coming in as well, but Garnacho was the sort of the shining light. Ten Hag really was keen on him. He's putting in some star performances in big games. Again, he's got that Dalot thing of slight sort of square peg in round hole syndrome, where he's a winger. He isn't a number 10. He doesn't have the kind of quick interplay and the through balls that a Bruno or even a Mount when he's fit has. He's someone that likes challenging, taking men on, shooting, cutting inside. That isn't really a thing in this formation as much, and he seems to be struggling with form.
Do you know what? The more I think about it, I did a bit on the news about it yesterday, which we put out on socials, and there was talk of him going to Napoli for 80 million euros. Yeah. And I said, that kind of number makes me feel like it's worth it, even though I like Garnacho. And I do feel sorry for Alejandro Garnacho. And there's some reasons why. We talk about, I'm not saying you keep him because you feel sorry for him. We just said we don't do that with Joshua Zirkzee, but comes in at the team at 18, 19, bursts onto the scene after winning the FA Youth Cup and being the star of that final, gets the winner at Fulham and comes on against City, and he's amazing for those 15 minutes at Old Trafford, and everyone's like loving him. He's like, oh my God, he's a throwback to the kind of wings we used to have at United, and he just loves getting on the ball, running at players, causing havoc, getting goals. Great. Then he plays something like, starts 30 games on the spin when he shouldn't, but we're knackered, we haven't got enough players, and he's one that is a danger. He's sort of, his form deserts him a little bit, starts getting a little bit of criticism, doesn't perhaps handle it in the way he should do, but he's a youngster and he's struggling a little bit. So he's, that which causes him to get hammered more. Then there's all this nonsense. It's like, some of his family members on socials are doing things. He's doing things on socials which aren't great. Players, people start hating on him a little bit.
Reports of the leaking team news and stuff coming through him, which was never corroborated or sort of finalised by any means
proven
whatsoever.
Guilty.
Yeah.
Exactly. Then he's dropped from the derby, and to be fair, the kid, he comes back. He doesn't spit his dummy out. He plays his part in games that we saw at Anfield and at the Emirates. So I just feel like he's a youngster who probably needed to be handled in a certain way, has come into a bit of a bin fire at Manchester United, hasn't been handled well, really, because it's in that second season under Eric Ten Hag when everything was going wrong and he was one of the starters every week when he probably shouldn't have been. It hasn't been great. And also, listen, I don't know Alejandro Garnacho at all, but I met him once when my lad did a presser, like this sort of mock press conference with a load of young United fans, and he seemed like a dead nice lad. Spent a lot of time with the kids. Do you know what I mean? He seemed like just a nice, genuine kid. I had a lot of time for him. And I just feel a bit sorry for him. I feel like it's become a bit of a thing where a lot of fans aren't feeling him. He's, like you said, a square peg in a round hole. He's probably not really sort of enjoying his time at Manchester United. And you think, if the right offer came along, would it just be one of those where you go, look, we thought he was going to be the next big thing for us. It's probably not going to work out like that. Yeah. Do we take the money? But it would have to be a big amount of money. And when I say big, the 80 million euros that Napoli was quoted in that article, I don't know if it's true or not, that made me think, okay, there could be something in there if you spend it the right way. Even anything less than that, even like 65, 70, I'd still be a bit like, But 80 million, I think, is like, you go, okay, because it's all profit as well. That makes it worthwhile to me. People might go, you're never going to get 80 million euros for Garnacho. All right, then we don't sell him.
Yeah.
Fine. Keep him. Okay. Because he's a player I'm quite happy to keep. But if we are going to make a decision on more than just Marcus Rashford, if we are going to make a tough decision, then maybe Garnacho is that tough decision. Because I think every other...
You don't want to sell Bruno.
Nope.
You don't want to sell Mainu.
Nope.
Other than that, there aren't...
What are you doing? That's not... Where's the tough decision you've made then? You're letting Eriksen go? That's not difficult. No disrespect to him. This might be the one.
If we want to make some actual proper money this summer, unfortunately, this is how it works now because United run at a loss and we, lose sponsorship money because we don't get in the top competitions. Maybe Garnacho is the one. It's a shame though, isn't it? It's just sad talking like this, but
I know,
that's what football is and what transfers are.
I do feel for him because, well, look, go back to that youth team that he was in. Other than Kobe Mainu, how many of those players made it?
Yeah, no.
None of them.
Not for United.
No, yeah. How many of them? And yet he's the one that's sort of, getting hammered every week on socials and stuff. And it's like, yeah, he probably has done a few things that are a bit daft, but what were you doing when you were 20 years old, 19 years old?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you certainly didn't have, thousands of pounds, tens of thousands of pounds coming in every week to spend on bad decisions. He's not made that many, really, has he?
He's another one. If he came into the United side in 2002 or whatever, he'd have been playing 10 games a season for the first 3 seasons and gradually brought in. He wouldn't have played 30 games on the spin. So I do feel a bit for him, but maybe that's a tough decision we have to make.
Right, let us know in the comments your thoughts. Who should United sell and how can we change things going forward so that in 10 years' time we aren't looking at Chelsea and City and Tottenham having made 300, 400, 500 million more than us in sales and 1 billion more than us in the likes of Chelsea, although they've done something like 350 transfers in the last 10 years and United have done like 150. So if they hadn't made more than us in sales, there would be serious issues there. But even so, United are struggling on that front and something has to change if we want to start building and being able to buy better players. Thank you, Jay. Thank you for joining us at home. Get your thoughts in the comments below. We'll see you in a bit. And you know the thing with Manscaped by now, Jay, they've got it all covered. It's not just downstairs anymore with the beard and balls bundle.
No.
Which means that... What do you mean, no? Sorry, start again.